Once upon a time, in the heart of the fertile lands of the East, lay the village of Izu. It was a kingdom renowned for three things: the sharpness of its machetes, the strength of its warriors, and the breathtaking beauty of its people. In Izu, appearance was not just vanity, it was currency. A man with broad shoulders and a symmetrical face was seen as blessed by the gods, destined for leadership and greatness. But among the tall, chiseled men of Izu, there lived a young man named Obinna. Obinna was gentle, with hands that could nurture the most stubborn yam tubers into a bountiful harvest and a heart that held no malice. Yet, the village did not see his hands, nor did they care for his heart. They only saw his head. From birth, Obinna had been afflicted with a head significantly larger than the average man's. It sat heavy upon his neck, a prominent feature that drew eyes wherever he went. In a village that worshipped perfection, Obinna was treated as a mistake of nature. They stripped him of his name and branded him with a cruel moniker, Calabash Head. The mockery began in his childhood and followed him relentlessly into manhood. As seen in the image of his misery, the pain was not just physical. It was a deep, tearing wound in his soul. On this particular morning, the sun was high and unforgiving as Obinna made his way from his mother's hut toward the village stream. He tried to walk quickly, keeping his gaze fixed on the red dust of the path, hoping to become invisible. But in Izu, Obinna could never be invisible. "Hey, look, the ground is shaking," a group of young men shouted from under the shade of an udara tree. "Is it an earthquake?" Another laughed, slapping his thigh. "No, it is just Calabash Head trying to balance the weight of the world on his neck." Laughter erupted, sharp and piercing. Obinna felt the familiar sting of tears pricking his eyes, but he bit his lip, forcing them back. He clutched his chest, feeling the frantic rhythm of his heart, a heart that beat just as humanly as theirs, though they treated him like a beast. He hurried home, seeking the only sanctuary he knew. His mother, Mama Nkechi, was winnowing corn in front of their modest hut. She saw the slump of his shoulders and the wetness on his lashes. She dropped her tray and rushed to him, pulling him into an embrace. "My son," she whispered, wiping his face with the edge of her wrapper. "Why do you let them break you? Do they not know that a big head is a container for great wisdom? The gods gave you extra room because your destiny is too large for a small mind to comprehend." "They call me a curse, Mama," Obinna choked out, his voice trembling. "No woman will look at me. No man will drink palm wine with me. I am alone." "You are not alone," Mama Nkechi said fiercely. "And you are not a curse. One day Izu will see what I see." But that day felt a lifetime away. Later that afternoon, the true test of his spirit arrived. As Obinna walked near the village square, the air suddenly filled with the sound of flute music and the jingling of expensive coral beads. The crowd parted instantly, bowing low. It was Princess Adanna. The king's daughter was the jewel of Izu, a woman of striking beauty, wrapped in expensive black and gold fabrics, crowned with a high red cap adorned with jewels. But while her face was fair, her spirit was as dark as charcoal. She thrived on the belittlement of others, believing that by pushing people down, she stood taller. Walking beside her was Uche, a tall, handsome warrior. Uche was Obinna's only friend since childhood, a man who had often defended him in secret. But Uche was now betrothed to Princess Adanna, and the engagement had made him cautious. Adanna stopped in her tracks when she saw Obinna trying to scurry past the perimeter of the square. A wicked grin spread across her face, the same mocking expression captured in the portrait of his torment. "Hold," she commanded, her voice ringing out like a bell. Obinna froze. He slowly turned, bowing his head. "My princess. Look at this," Adanna laughed, pointing a manicured finger at him. She turned to her entourage and to Uche. "I was just telling my father that we need to expand the royal granaries to store more yams. But looking at Obinna, I realize we don't need a barn. We can just store the harvest inside his head." The royal guards roared with laughter. The villagers nearby joined in, eager to please the princess. Obinna stood there, stripped of dignity. He looked at Uche, pleading silently for help. Uche shifted uncomfortably, looking at the ground. "You are silent, my betrothed," Adanna said, turning her sharp gaze on Uche. "Do you not find it funny? Or perhaps you share an affinity with this creature?" Uche cleared his throat, sweating. "Princess, he is just a villager. Let him go." Adanna's smile vanished. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped closer to Obinna, shrinking him with her presence. "He is an eyesore, a blight on my beautiful kingdom. Every time I see him, I feel the urge to vomit." She leaned in, her voice dripping with venom. "Obinna, if you trip, your head might crack the earth and swallow us all. Do us a favor and stay indoors." "That is enough, Adanna." The shout came from Uche. The square went deathly silent. No one interrupted the princess. Uche stepped between Adanna and Obinna. "He has done nothing to you. He is a man of Izu, and he deserves peace." Obinna's heart swelled with gratitude, but terror quickly followed. He saw the look on the princess's face. It was not just anger. It was pure, cold malice. She felt humiliated by her fiancé defending the village outcast. She straightened her crown, her eyes flashing with a dangerous light. She looked from Uche to Obinna, her lips curling into a sneer. "So," she whispered, her voice carrying a deadly calm, "you choose to defend the monster over the comfort of your future queen?" "I defend what is right," Uche said, though his voice wavered. Adanna laughed, but this time there was no humor in it. It was the sound of a judge delivering a death sentence. "Very well," she declared loudly for all to hear. "Since you love this calabash so much, Uche, take heed." She stepped back, pointing a finger at Obinna, then dragging it through the air to point at Uche. "If I see you walking with this creature again," she hissed, "I will not only call off our wedding, but I will have my father exile Obinna from Izu for polluting the royal site. Test me, Uche, and you will see that my power is far greater than your pity." With a swirl of her robes, she turned and marched away, leaving Obinna trembling in the dust, the weight of his head feeling heavier than ever before. He had not only been humiliated, he had now become a danger to the only friend he had left. Obinna was now truly alone, facing a cruelty that seemed to have no end. Welcome, travelers, to Afro Tales by Moonlight. Before we journey deeper into the forest, where Obinna's fate is about to change forever, please click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Join our community of story lovers so you never miss a tale of justice, love, and tradition. Now, let us see what hides in the shadows. The days following Princess Adanna's decree were the loneliest of Obinna's life. To protect Uche, Obinna made a painful decision. Whenever he saw his friend approaching, Obinna would turn and walk the other way. He stopped visiting the usual spots where the young men gathered to sharpen their machetes or discuss the harvest. He became a ghost in his own village, existing only in the shadows to ensure Uche's royal marriage and his friend's safety remained intact. With the village square now a place of danger, Obinna sought refuge where no one else dared to go: the deep forest. The villagers of Izu feared the deep woods. They believed spirits walked there, and that the trees whispered secrets of the dead. But for Obinna, the forest was safer than the marketplace. The trees did not mock the size of his head. The birds did not laugh at his appearance. Here, he was just a man. One fateful afternoon, Obinna ventured further than usual to gather rare roots for his mother's herbal remedies. The canopy above was thick, blocking out the sun and casting the forest floor in eternal twilight. He tied his wrapper tightly around his waist, his machete swinging at his side, ignoring the distant hooting of owls. Suddenly, a sound broke the stillness. Groan. Obinna froze. It was a low, pained sound, human and desperate. He gripped his machete tighter. Was it a trap? The bandits from the northern roads were known to use tricks. But the groan came again, weaker this time. Driven by a heart that refused to harden despite the world's cruelty, Obinna moved toward the sound. He pushed through a thicket of sharp ferns and gasped. Lying in a heap at the base of a massive iroko tree was a young woman. She was dressed in robes that had once been fine, though now they were torn and stained with mud and blood. Her skin was pale from shock, and a nasty gash marred her arm. She looked to be about his age, but her face was unfamiliar. She was not from Izu. "Help," she whispered, her eyes fluttering closed. "Bandits." Obinna's heart pounded against his ribs. If he was found with a strange woman, especially one who looked like she might be of high status, the village would accuse him of all manner of crimes. Princess Adanna would surely use it as an excuse to exile him, or worse. But he looked at the woman's helpless form. She was shivering, life slowly draining from her. "I cannot leave you here," Obinna murmured to himself. Sheathing his machete, he knelt and gently lifted her. She was light, frail against his broad, warrior-like chest. With surprising strength, he hoisted her onto his back, her head resting near his own, the very head the world mocked, now serving as a pillow for a dying stranger. He moved with the stealth of a leopard, sticking to the hidden paths. He waited until the sun had fully set and the moon was obscured by clouds before slipping into the back of his compound. "Mama!" he hissed as he entered the hut. Mama Nkechi looked up from her cooking fire and nearly dropped her spoon. "Chineke! Obinna, what have you brought into this house?" "A life, Mama. Bandits attacked her in the forest. If I left her, the hyenas would have feasted before dawn." Mama Nkechi's fear turned instantly to maternal instinct. "Bring her to the mat, quickly." For the next 3 days, the mother and son worked in secret. They cleaned the stranger's wounds with hot water and applied a poultice made of crushed bitter leaf and healing herbs. They fed her warm yam pepper soup to restore her strength. When the woman finally regained her full consciousness, she found Obinna sitting by the door, carving a piece of wood. She watched him for a long time before speaking. She noticed the size of his head, yes, but she also noticed the gentleness in his hands and the focused intelligence in his eyes. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice raspy. Obinna jumped, turning to face her. "I am Obinna. You are safe here." "I am Amara," she lied. She hesitated to give her full name or title. In truth, she was Princess Amara of the powerful kingdom of Obioa, a land feared by all neighboring villages. She had been traveling in secret to visit an aunt when her guards were ambushed. She had fled into the woods, leaving her identity behind to survive. "You are in Izu," Obinna explained. "You must rest, Amara. My mother has gone to the market to buy more food." Over the next week, a quiet bond formed between the outcast and the hidden princess. Amara saw what the village refused to see. She saw a man who could identify every bird by its call, a man who spoke with deep wisdom about the land and the stars. One evening, as they shared a meal of roasted yam, Amara asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Why do you hide, Obinna? You have the strength of a warrior and the mind of a scholar, yet you flinch when voices pass outside the hut." Obinna lowered his gaze, his hand instinctively going to his head. "You see me, Amara. You see this burden I carry. In Izu, a man is judged by the symmetry of his features. I am Calabash Head. The princess of this land has threatened to banish me if I even cast a shadow near her betrothed." Amara's eyes flashed with a sudden, fierce fire. "They mock you? Because of your head?" "Endlessly," Obinna sighed with a sad smile. "They say I am a curse, that I will crack the earth." Amara reached out, placing her small, smooth hand over his rough, calloused one. The touch sent a jolt of electricity through Obinna. No woman, save his mother, had ever touched him willingly. "They are blind fools," Amara said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "You saved my life when you owed me nothing. You have a nobility in you that their beautiful princes could never understand. Do not let their small minds define your worth, Obinna." Obinna looked at her, stunned. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel ugly. He felt seen. "Thank you, Amara," he whispered. "But you must not say such things outside. If the princess hears a stranger defending me, she will destroy us both." "Let her try," Amara muttered under her breath, a hint of her royal authority slipping through. Just then, the peaceful atmosphere was shattered. The sound of heavy boots crunched on the gravel outside. Obinna froze. Had someone seen him carry Amara in? Had the princess sent her guards? Amara scrambled back against the wall, her eyes wide. Obinna stood up, shielding her with his body, grabbing his machete. Bam! The door to the hut burst open, slamming against the mud wall. Obinna raised his weapon, ready to fight for his life. But he lowered it instantly when he saw who stood in the doorway. It was Uche. But this was not the composed warrior Obinna knew. Uche was drenched in sweat, his chest heaving, his eyes wide with terror. He looked over his shoulder as if the devil himself were chasing him, then slammed the door shut and barred it. "Uche," Obinna breathed. "What are you doing here? If Adanna knows you are here, forget Adanna." Uche gasped, grabbing Obinna by the shoulders. He didn't even notice the strange woman in the corner. "Obinna, you have to run. You have to leave Izu tonight." "What? Why?" "The new Yam Festival," Uche choked out. "Adanna, she has planned something. She says she is bored. She wants entertainment." Uche's voice cracked. "She has declared a new game for the festival tomorrow, and she has specifically summoned you." Obinna's blood ran cold. "She is not just going to mock you this time, brother," Uche whispered, tears standing in his eyes. "She plans to break you completely. You must run." Obinna stood paralyzed. Run? And leave his mother? Leave the village of his ancestors? From the corner of the room, Amara stood up. She walked into the light, her face hard as stone. "No," she said, her voice commanding. "He will not run." Uche spun around, startled. "Who is this?" "He will not run," Amara repeated, looking at Obinna with an intensity that burned. "If this princess wants a show, then we shall give her one." The morning of the new Yam Festival broke with the thunderous sound of the Ikoro drum. Gome, gome, gome. The beat vibrated through the mud walls of every hut in Izu. calling the people to the village square. It was the most important day of the year. The harvest had been plentiful, and the air smelled of roasted goat meat, spicy palm oil sauce, and fresh pounded yam. Men dressed in their finest Isiagu tops, and women adorned their waists with layers of jagaida beads that clicked rhythmically as they walked. For everyone in Izu, it was a day of joy. For Obinna, it was a march toward his execution. "You do not have to go," Mama Nkechi pleaded, her hands trembling as she adjusted the wrapper around Obinna's waist. "We can say you are ill with fever. And let Adanna punish you for my absence?" Obinna shook his head slowly. "No, Mama. I will not hide behind my mother's wrapper like a coward. If she wants to mock me, let her do it to my face." Standing in the shadows of the hut was Amara. She had traded her torn robes for a simple village dress Mama Nkechi had provided, wrapping a scarf low over her forehead to conceal her noble features. "Walk with your head high, Obinna," Amara said, her voice steel hard. "Remember what I told you. Their laughter is just noise. Your dignity is the only truth." Obinna nodded, drawing strength from her fierce eyes. He stepped out into the blinding sun, with Amara following a few paces behind, blending into the crowd of villagers flowing toward the square. The village square was a sea of color and noise. The king of Izu sat on his high throne, flanked by elders waving horsetail whisks. Beside him sat Princess Adanna. She looked breathtakingly malevolent, dressed in crimson robes that matched the bloodthirsty glint in her eyes. Her fiancé, Uche, sat by her feet looking pale and refusing to lift his eyes from the ground. The festivities began with wrestlers showcasing their strength, followed by maidens dancing the atilogwu. The crowd cheered, lost in the celebration. Then, Princess Adanna raised her hand. The drums stopped instantly. A hush fell over the thousands gathered. She stood up, her smile dazzling and cruel. "My people of Izu," she announced, her voice carrying effortlessly. "We have celebrated the harvest. We have seen the strength of our wrestlers. But now, I desire a different kind of entertainment. I want to see a feat of balance." She clapped her hands. "Bring out the largest tubers of yam from the king's barn." 4 muscular guards struggled to bring out a basket filled with yams the size of human thighs. "I want to see our men balance these yams on their heads while dancing," Adanna declared. Several young men stepped forward, eager to impress the princess. They balanced the heavy tubers, moving their feet skillfully to the drum beat. The crowd cheered for them. "Wonderful," Adanna said, clapping lazily. Then her eyes scanned the crowd like a hawk hunting a field mouse. She stopped when she found him. "But wait," she smiled. "There is one man whose head was made for carrying heavy loads. Where is he? Where's the great Calabash?" The crowd parted instinctively, leaving Obinna standing alone in the center of the dusty square. The silence was deafening. "Come forward, Obinna," Adanna cooed. Obinna walked forward, his steps heavy. He stopped before the royal dais and bowed. "My princess." "Look at him," Adanna laughed, gesturing to the crowd. "The gods gave him a head the size of a barn. Surely he can carry the whole harvest. Guards, place the biggest yam on him." A guard stepped forward, holding a massive tuber. But as he reached up to place it on Obinna's head, Adanna shouted, "Stop!" The guard froze. "Are you a fool?" Adanna mocked. "If you put that heavy yam on that shapeless, swollen head, it will roll off and crush my toes. Or worse, his neck will snap like a dry twig, and his big head will crack the earth open and swallow us all." The crowd erupted. The laughter was a physical blow. Men slapped their knees. Women covered their mouths to hide their giggles. Children pointed and jeered. Calabash Head, Calabash Head, the chant began, starting from the back and swelling like a wave. Obinna stood still. He did not cry. He did not run. He just stood there, a solitary figure in a storm of ridicule, letting the shame wash over him. He looked at Uchi, but his friend had buried his face in his hands. Adanna was delighted. Look at him. He stands there like a dumb animal, a useless, ugly thing that... Enough! The voice cracked through the laughter like a whip. It was sharp, authoritative, and impossibly loud. The chanting died down. Heads turned. From the back of the crowd, a young woman pushed her way through. It was Amara. She marched into the center of the square, her simple dress swirling around her ankles, her eyes blazing with a fire that terrified the nearest guards. She walked straight to Obinna and stood beside him, facing the royal dais. "Who is this rag?" Adanna asked, her lip curling in disgust. "Who dares interrupt my festival?" "I dare," Amara declared, her voice ringing clear. She looked at the crowd, her gaze filled with contempt. "I have traveled many lands, but never have I seen a village so poor." "Poor?" a chief shouted. "We are the wealthiest land in the East." "You are poor in spirit," Amara retorted. "You gather here to mock a man who has done you no wrong? You laugh at a man whose heart is 10 times the size of your king's kingdom? You look at his head and see a joke. I look at him and see a man of patience, strength, and quiet dignity." She turned to Adanna. "And you? You call yourself a princess. A princess protects her people. She does not feed them to the wolves of her own vanity. You are not royalty. You are a bully in expensive robes." The square went deathly silent. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. No one spoke to the Princess of Izu that way. Obinna tugged at Amara's sleeve, panic rising in his chest. "Amara, stop. They will kill you." "Let them try," she whispered to him, then turned back to Adanna. "This man, this Calabash Head, as you call him, is worth more than your entire palace." Princess Adanna's face turned a shade of purple. Her chest heaved with fury. She stood up, knocking over her goblet of palm wine. "You dare!" Adanna screamed, her voice shrill. "You dare insult me in my father's house? You nameless witch! You think you can stand beside that monster and lecture me?" Adanna pointed a trembling finger at the guards. "Seize them!" she shrieked. "Seize them both! Throw this witch and her monster into the deepest dungeon. Tonight, they will learn their place. Tonight, they will scream for mercy, and I will not give it." The royal guards, recovering from their shock, drew their swords and surged forward, surrounding Obinna and Amara. "Do not fight them, Obinna," Amara said calmly, raising her chin. "Let them take us." As the rough hands of the guards grabbed them, dragging them toward the palace gates amidst the confused murmurs of the crowd, Amara looked back at Princess Adanna one last time. It was not a look of fear. It was a look of promise. The sun began to set, casting long, blood-red shadows across the square. The festival was over. The judgment had begun. The guards dragged Obinna and Amara across the dusty square toward the palace gates. The crowd watched in stunned silence, fear of the princess keeping their mouths shut. Obinna stumbled, the rough grip of a guard digging into his arm, but he looked at Amara. She was not struggling. She was walking with a terrifying calm, her head held high, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "Move faster," a guard shouted, shoving Obinna. "You'll rot in the dark for insulting the princess." "You will regret touching him," Amara said, her voice low and dangerous. "Shut up, witch," The guard spat. Just as they reached the heavy wooden gates of the palace prison, the ground began to tremble. It started as a low vibration, rattling the calabashes on the market tables. Then, it grew into a rhythmic thrumming, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The birds in the trees took flight in a panic. Pro! The sound of a massive ivory war horn tore through the air, vibrating in the chests of every man, woman, and child in Izu. The guards froze. King Izu stood up from his throne, his eyes wide. That is the horn of Obioa. Before anyone could move, the gates of the village square were smashed open. Like a river of steel and fire, an army poured into Izu. Hundreds of warriors, their muscles glistening with oil, their machetes sharp enough to split a hair, marched in perfect formation. They did not attack. They simply surrounded the square, creating a wall of terrifying strength. At the center of the formation rode a giant of a man on a white stallion. He wore leopard skins and a crown of eagle feathers. His presence alone sucked the air out of the square. It was King Ezi of Obioa, the Lion of the East, a ruler known for burning cities that disrespected him. King Izu trembled on his throne. "Great King Ezi," he stammered, his voice cracking. "To what do we owe this visit? We have no quarrel with Obioa." King Ezi ignored him. His eyes, burning with the fury of a father, scanned the crowd. "Where is she?" His voice thundered, shaking the leaves off the trees. "Where is my daughter?" A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. "Daughter? What daughter?" Then the peasant girl in the grip of the Izu guards spoke. "I am here, Papa." The guards holding Amara dropped her arms, as if they were holding burning coals. They scrambled back, falling over themselves in terror. Amara stepped forward, pulling the scarf from her head. She shook her hair free, standing tall in her simple village dress, yet looking more regal than anyone in the square. "Amara," Princess Adanna whispered, her face draining of all color. King Eze dismounted his horse in one fluid motion and rushed to Amara, checking her face, her arms. When he saw the healing scar on her arm, his face darkened. He turned slowly to face the King of Izu and Princess Adanna. "You," King Izu growled, pointing a finger thick as a yam tuber at them. "You allowed my daughter, the Princess of Obioa, to be dragged like a criminal in your dirt? We did not know." Princess Adanna cried, falling to her knees. She looked like a nobody. She was with him. She pointed a shaking finger at Obinna. King Iza turned his gaze to Obinna. Obinna stood frozen, his heart pounding. The king of Obioa walked toward him. The giant ruler towered over Obinna. "And who is this?" King Izi asked Amara. "This is Obinna," Amara said, her voice softening. "He is the man who found me bleeding in the forest. He is the man who carried me on his back. He nursed me to health when others would have left me to die. And he is the man this village mocks because of the shape of his head." King Eze looked at Obinna. He looked at the large head, the humble clothes, and then into Obinna's terrified but honest eyes. "They mocked him?" King Ez asked quietly. "They humiliated him," Amara confirmed. "Princess Adanna ordered him to be thrown in a dungeon because I dared to say he was a good man." King Ez drew his sword. The sound of the metal sliding from its sheath was the loudest sound in the world. "Izu will burn," King Ez declared. "For insulting my blood and for spitting on the man who saved her, I will wipe this village from the face of the earth." Pandemonium broke out. The villagers fell to their faces in the dust. The king of Izu threw himself at King Izu's feet. Princess Adanna, the once proud bully, was now sobbing into the dirt, her expensive robe stained with red earth. Mercy, mercy, great lion, King Izu wailed. We were foolish. We were blind. Mercy? King Ezi spat. Did you show mercy to Obinna when you laughed at him? Did you show mercy to my daughter when you dragged her? He raised his sword. Wait! The shout came from Obinna. Obinna stepped between the vengeful king and the cowering Princess Adanna. His legs were shaking, but his voice was steady. Great king, Obinna said, bowing low. Please, do not destroy them. King Ize paused, his sword hovering in the air. You defend them? After what they did to you? The princess called you a monster. She wanted you caged. Obinna looked down at Adanna. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with fear and shame. For the first time, she looked small. They were cruel, yes, Obinna said softly. But this is my home. These are my people. If you burn the village, my mother's hut will burn too. The innocent will suffer for the sins of the proud. My head is big, my king, big enough to hold forgiveness. Silence stretched across the square. Amara smiled, a radiant, proud smile. King Izu slowly lowered his sword. He looked at Obinna with new respect. You possess a strength that steel cannot cut, young man. A warrior conquers with a sword. A king conquers with wisdom. King Izu sheathed his weapon. I will spare Izu, but only for your sake. He turned to the shivering king of Izu. You are lucky this man has a heart of gold. Because of him, you keep your throne. Then Amara stepped forward. She took Obinna's rough hands in hers, right there in front of the silent crowd, in front of Uchi, and in front of the devastated Princess Adanna. Obinna, she said, her voice clear and sweet. You saved my life in the forest. You defended my honor in this square. You have shown mercy to your enemies. I have visited many kingdoms and met many princes with handsome faces but empty hearts. I do not want them. She looked deep into his eyes. I want you. Will you come with me to Obioa? Not as a refugee, but as my husband. Will you be my prince? Obinna gasped. Tears streamed down his face, tears of joy, finally washing away the years of pain. Amara, I am just a farmer with a calabash head. No, she whispered, touching his cheek. You are king in the making. Yes, Obinna choked out. Yes, I will. The cheer that erupted from King Izu's soldiers shook the trees. Even the villagers of Izu, swept up in the moment and relieved to be alive, began to cheer. Uchi stood up and walked over to Obinna. He gripped his friend's shoulder. Forgive me, brother. I should have stood by you. You are forgiven, Obinna said, clasping his arm. A few hours later, the procession prepared to leave. Obinna was bathed and dressed in royal robes brought from Obioa. A crown of coral beads was placed on his head. The head that had been mocked was now adorned with the symbol of supreme power. As Obinna helped Mama Nkechi onto a royal carriage, he looked back one last time. He saw Princess Adanna standing alone in the shadows, her vanity shattered, watching the ugly boy leave to become a ruler of a kingdom far greater than hers. Obinna did not mock her. He simply nodded, turned his back, and rode away into his destiny. Moral lessons 1. True worth is not physical. The people of Izu were obsessed with physical perfection, missing the diamond in their midst. Obinna's big head was mocked, but it held a brain full of wisdom and a mind capable of great forgiveness. Never judge a book or a person by their cover. 2. Kindness is the ultimate strength. It would have been easy for Obinna to leave Amara in the forest to avoid trouble. It would have been easy for him to let King Ez destroy the village. But his kindness saved Amara's life, and his mercy saved his entire village. Kindness is not weakness. It is a power that can stop armies. 3. Pride comes before a fall. Princess Adanna used her position to belittle others to make herself feel big. In the end, her pride was her undoing. She was brought low not by a weapon, but by her own cruelty. Those who dig pits for others often fall into them themselves. 4. Destiny cannot be stopped. The villagers called Obinna Calabash Head and said he would never find a wife. God and destiny laughed at their plans. The very thing they mocked became the pillow for a princess. No human being can stop the blessings written in your destiny. 5. The power of forgiveness. Obinna chose peace over revenge. By forgiving his tormentors, he left the village not as a refugee fleeing trauma, but as a king dispensing mercy. Forgiveness frees the victim more than the offender. And so, the boy they laughed at became the man they bowed to. Obinna's Calabash Head did not break the earth, but it certainly broke the chains of his past. What did you think of Princess Adanna's punishment? Did she get off too easy, or was the shame enough? Tell us in the comments below. And I have a question for you. Where are you watching from? Represent your country and your flag in the comment section. We want to know where our family resides. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to Afro Tales by Moonlight, and turn on that bell. We have many more stories from the ancestors waiting for you. Until next time, may your head be full of wisdom and your heart full of kindness. Good night.